Picture this. You're in front of your latest prospect, closing the biggest deal of your life. Your pitch decks were perfect. Your scripts, flawless. And when the time came to answer the golden question of, are you ready to move forward? Nothing happened. For everyone who loves sales, this is their worst nightmare. But fear not, because in this podcast, we're unraveling the enigma behind those missed opportunities. From appointments that evaporate to presentations that felt like a Broadway show but ended in awkward silence, we're dissecting it all. Welcome to Love Your Sales.
This podcast is presented by GenHead. GenHead leverages AI so small and medium-sized businesses can find their ideal clients to make more sales. Other companies talk about AI, but we are using it every day to drive down marketing costs and increase revenue. Learn more at genhead.com. That's genhead.com.
Welcome to another episode of Love Your Sales. Today, I am joined by Tyler Marcus. He is the CEO of Gradmor, a workforce intelligence company. I am so thrilled to have you join me today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your company, your organization does?
Sure. Well, Leighann, thank you for having me on your podcast. Excited to chat about anything business related, sales related, just give deep insight about what we do. So my business, Gradmor, me and my co-founder started the business in 2017. We provide insight to help organizations improve worker productivity, efficiencies, and performance to drive business outcomes. So a lot of the work we do can be around some of it now with AI automation in the manufacturing floor. We work with retail companies on improving efficiencies to hire better and retain talent better. We also work with large-scale enterprises to help them solve some of their biggest challenges around workforce issues. That could be anything from executive turnover, making sure that people, performance metrics, understanding what's driving performance within an organization and what's not. But most of our business is around data, workforce data, but more about using it to drive impact and how that leads to bottom line outcomes within an org.
I love that. And, data nowadays, organizations are finally realizing that they need to look within, because honestly, I think we've all already known that all of the answer, not all, but most of the answers already live within the data that we have. We just haven't figured out how to translate that data into raw information.
Correct. And I think that's that's a problem even at the enterprise level with the biggest companies. It's like, so the thing is, as we get more tech, companies use more technology, we use AI, right? We take that data, what are we doing with the data that we're collecting, right? And the thing is, a lot of it's not being collected, it's being collected, but it's not being analyzed in a certain way. And a lot of times that gets overlooked, especially on the workforce side for some reason. I think we've made strides over the years in marketing. We made strides in sales even to a point, but on the workforce side especially, there's a lot of data that doesn't get correlated that can drive different outcomes within an org. So for example, if I'm working with a manufacturing company that has a distribution center with thousands and thousands of different products, they have workers that are grabbing these products and shipping them out into different places. But if it takes a worker an hour to fill an order versus a half hour, that is business in itself, because now you can get more efficient. If someone can fill 20 orders instead of 10 in a day, what does that mean to your business? And that's just looking at your workforce data. We're not talking about anything beyond that. So I think, yes, like we have gotten more data driven in how we think about things over time. I think AI now has made people think about data even more. And I've noticed that in my own business. But most of the time we have information to drive outcomes within our organization that we collect. We just don't use it at all. And it's because either we don't have time, the resources, or just to know what to do with it. I think that's
right. Often we don't know how. We don't know how to use that information appropriately. And it's people like you stepping in saying, well, here's how we can translate that appropriately, because and forgive me if I'm incorrect, but often in large manufacturing companies or small manufacturing companies especially, but even at the enterprise level, you've got, somebody sitting at the top going, okay, give me all of this information, but then they're getting this information and going, okay, yeah, but what do I do with this information to turn around and then improve it on the manufacturing floor, or
Right.
even within my office, to take a process that right now takes 2 hours down to, I don't know, can we squish this down into a half an hour? And more we're seeing that, especially repeatable processes. And even in my job, with especially in sales, I'll ask a salesperson, like, how often do you send this same email? How often are you going onto a Word document, copying and pasting that email, putting it into an email, maybe tweaking a couple of things and then sending that out? And they're like, oh, I do that constantly. And I'm like, wouldn't it be much easier if there was just a button that you could click, that it would drop it in? That they're like, yeah, that would be way easier. And I'm like, you can do that.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, there's and now with like AI, you can automate a lot of the things you do in an effective way. I mean, we do it internally for ourselves to make us more productive when I'm analyzing things or cleaning data. Like just certain things that you can do to speed up your process and focus your energy in areas where it's more useful, and also areas you want to use. I don't think most people want to be like editing their little emails for sales. I think they'd rather be like, doing the things they want, which is like meeting people in person, you know, having those conversations, thinking about strategic consulting, maybe consultative sales, not doing the operation side of sales,
Right.
which what we found, even because I worked with a lot of sales teams with our workforce intelligence work for years in terms of efficiencies and performance. And what we found is the best salespeople in an organization, they spend the least time in operations on the
Right.
CRM. They spend most of their time on the phone or in a meeting.
Right.
And really, I've done analysis with this all the time, and we've seen it where it's like, okay, your best performers, it's like, how are they spending their time? A lot of it is how they spend their time. It's that
Correct.
it's time and process and what they're doing on a day to day.
And that's for everything. Everybody needs to figure out how do you spend your time on revenue generating tasks. And in sales, I say that constantly. Revenue generating tasks. Sending an email is not a revenue generating task. And now a lot of people, well, yeah, it is. I need to follow up with that person. I need to make sure. No, that's not a revenue generating having a conversation with a new person about XYZ, that is revenue generating. The mundane things, now, that translates into so much deeper than I even understand in what you do, for so many other things that, again, that, what I don't know, I don't even know. So I can't even bring it up with you right now,
Yeah.
which is why we're having this conversation, right? Because you being able to, and what I found wildly interesting when we first talked is you had mentioned, like, the workforce development, that you work with companies on, the hiring processes, and then actually even going further with some of that. I want to shift here really quick to talk a little bit about how you help with that.
On like the hiring side of things,
Yeah, yeah.
sure. So that's good because like also related, like the majority of the things I started on the hiring success side was from sales. So on my retail companies I work with, and even on the enterprise sales side, we actually help them hire people more successful, find representatives or reps that could be a better fit based on the historical data that's within a CRM system and within certain assessment tools that people use. So let me give you a quick example. So one of my partners, Predictive Index, is a behavioral assessment tool,
Hmm.
right? A lot of time, 10-minute behavioral assessment, and you get a result, and it's like, okay, you're extroverted, you're impatient, you're informal or formal. It has all these sort of designations, right?
Hmm.
So by understanding like people's personal behaviors, understanding what metrics within the CRM drive our positive behaviors and what are negative, you could then hire better salespeople for your org. Because the thing is, what happens is people have this misconception, particularly in the enterprise land, that all salespeople are the same. And the reason they're successful is the same. It's not. It actually is based on probably 5 to 10 different things that or go beyond that. So for example, in enterprise sales, if you have a long sales cycle, that's a year to two, like 1 to 2 years, and you're selling to Fortune 500s, that is a very different salesperson than the person who's hunting for business and it's a 3-month sales cycle in enterprise. Okay. It's a totally different, the person that succeeds generally at the 3-month versus the 1 to 2 year, very different people, right? Because you have to be able to not only build a relationship, you have to maintain that relationship over time, and you have to be able to influence and make sort of like drive like influence and change for that with that person over a year or two, right? And how to work through layers of an organization. So it's this understanding of like how people and what works within an org and what doesn't depends on everything from sales cycle, company culture, sales process. Some companies have amazing training and sales process and tech stack, right? They have like everything. Other companies are like, all right, like you're signed up, you have 2 weeks, and now like, all right, we just have a CRM.
Bye.
But so like some people thrive in that stuff, right? They're like,
Right.
hey, I'm great. I don't care if you have any tech stack. Others are very process driven. They need a tech stack. So just understanding these little things can actually drive sales for your org, just by understanding how to identify what works best in your team. And the thing is, we get very caught up on these sort of like narratives of what makes a great salesperson. Okay, but like, oh, it's your, you have to be a hunter. It's like, no, you have to be a hunter in a certain role and in certain industries, but in a large scale cybersecurity company that's selling to Amazon or selling to banks, being a hunter is actually bad because you're not hunting, you're actually building.
Right.
And
Right.
it's different, totally different.
Right. Well, yeah, the hunter is going to get bored.
They leave, basically. They get bored or they become toxic is what I found out. So because the hunter wants to hunt and push that thing forward. And what happens is if they don't get deals closed or they're not seeing that stuff, they start to get bored, like you said, or they can become actually toxic because they're getting frustrated. And when people get frustrated, they lash out or they don't, they start becoming, detrimental to the team. So it becomes a negative, right? So that's really like what your role is for what your business is matters to what the people are you want in those roles.
That is so cool. Like, the amount of time nowadays, I mean, I have Chat GPT up on my computer all the time. And I use also some other AI tools, a ton of other AI tools throughout the day. But I mean, I'll ask Chat a simple thing like, I'll open up an account and then I'm like, oh, I don't actually, this was the wrong thing. And then I'm like, hey, Chat, how do I quickly close this account? Like, I mean, simple things like that make my life so much easier. But a tool that you just described, because first of all, I've had my entire career prior to, switching into really just focusing 100% on sales was the study of humans because I come from an HR background.
Okay.
And then hiring and being able to hire the right person in the right role and making recommendations to hiring managers. So I started out just, as a entry level, hiring person or entry level, staffing person. But as I built my way up and I got into, hiring for very, very specific roles for like GE sensing Fanuc and, these very niche roles because, as you get more experienced, you get these and you have to fully understand, what is the culture? What are they looking for? What are they not saying that they want? And and early on, you had to discover that through who are they passing on and who are they, choosing to interview? And then what is the feedback based on, oh, well, this person had this really great experience, but what I didn't like was this. And it's like, okay, so now I'm starting to get a full picture. Now, what you're describing now is from the historical data of the people who are successful, of the people who have not been successful. You can get almost a 360 view of who is going to be predictively, who's going to be successful in this role based on that historical data and why they're going to be successful in that.
Exactly. Yeah, correct. And it's, yeah, is it going to work every time? No, but even a 10, 20% shift. Look, if you have a 300 person sales team, say it's a huge
Right.
sales team and you hire 50 reps a year, 10, 20% shift can be millions of dollars because in especially enterprise where the gaps can be, oh, our best reps produce 6 million in revenue and our worst ones produce 1.5. Like,
Right.
so
Well,
it doesn't have to be perfect, just needs to be better. It's again, it's another way to optimize something, right?
correct. Not to mention the
We're again driving revenue, not just because like, oh, we're hiring people. It's like, no, like you can drive revenue by hiring smarter in sales.
correct. Well, smarter in every role. Think about the cost. What way back when I, was doing analysis on the cost to hire, just one person, to hire one person, to get them up and running and all of the training and everything else, only to have to turn around and fire them. Way back in the day, that was like the cost of that was like 30,000. I can only imagine that nowadays that has shot up to probably 45 or 50,000 with, all of the inflation of the cost of healthcare and
Right.
blah, 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 blah. So the cost to hire, the amount of people, and something that we forget to add in sometimes to that is who's training that person and how much are they spending or losing in time of training somebody who's only going to fail and end up either opting out of that job on their own or getting fired because they were just a bad hire and not a bad person, just a bad hire for that role.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, and that doesn't mean they're not good at sales either, probably. I mean, to a point, yeah, some people maybe not, but there's a certain, like, I'm very good at certain specific type of sales. I'm not the best cold caller. It's not my thing. I know the mentality is not hunter, that type of hunter. I'm more of like a relationship building persuader, right? So I'm more about, I like to have coffee and meet people and talk and consultate. I want to pick up the phone 100 times and make 100 dials and try to, like, that's not my, it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't,
Right.
I don't get excited about it and it's not my thing. Like, and that's fine. That doesn't mean that I'm not good at it. That's just not my strength. It's not
Right.
where I live. And I think it's more important to know what you're good at and focus on it. I think a lot of times, like, we get caught up in having to do what we think we need to do. And it's like, no, you don't. I'm an entrepreneur, so it's different. I can pick my lanes, right? I could be like, yeah, I could either be a cold caller, right? I could spend 3 hours, 2 hours a day dialing, or I could go and have, go to networking events and have meetings and coffees and lunches, and that could be a whole different way. So it's really like, people think it's like one dimensional, and it's not. It's not a one dimensional thing. It's like sports. It's like there are people that are good in basketball at defense, and there are people that are great at 3-pointers, and there are people that are great at passing the ball. So it's like, find your sweet spot, like, and
Right.
go do something that relates to that. Once you find your sweet spot, the benefit of that too is, like, you end up doing things that bring you energy, add energy to you, because you like. If you do the things you like, you compound better. If you do things that you don't enjoy doing, it takes it away and you feel not as good, and then you can't build off the momentum. It's a huge thing, and I think that's where I've learned over 8 years of being an entrepreneur. I used to try to do everything in sales. Like, oh, I have to do this campaigns and I have to do call. Oh, we got it. And it's like, okay, what do I like doing?
Right.
And also, what is my cycle for what I'm building? If I'm talking to an enterprise company, guess what? It's a year cycle. It's not more.
Right. Right. Well, yes. And that's an understanding the difference. A lot of people don't understand that there is a difference. Even companies will not understand sometimes early on that there is a difference between working with an enterprise company and working with, and that's, again, as a sales professional who has sold, well, to every size company, not every industry. There's some industries that I'm like, I don't even want to get involved in that type of industry, because it's like, medical. I've always been like, I don't want to get in medical because it's a completely different animal.
Oh yeah. I mean, we could talk about that. Like, like, if you're in healthcare specifically, well, if you're selling to hospitals, for example, that's a whole different, it's like, it's a whole different world.
Right.
be able to speak, language around to doctors and also to boards of hospitals.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a whole different. So you're talking to doctors, and then you got to go to a board, and it's a whole different cycle, and it's a different bureaucracy. It's almost like government in a sense. It's
And that's a whole nother industry that I'm like, I don't know, because people don't realize that walking into a room where you're meeting with one person, one decision maker, that's going to be usually quite fast. If they want to buy and they're interested and it's one decision maker, you're pretty much, it's going to be a fast decision. And here's something that I learned really quick. If you're selling, especially to like a personal, you're going to sell a roof, or you're going to somebody's home to sell a massive landscaping job, and that house is owned by a husband and wife. Don't go there if the husband and wife are not together.
Yeah.
Most husbands and
What about
wives, if
just the
they're
wife?
well, right, if
It's like the
if they're
show. What's the Home Improvement show? With the three houses or whatever. Have you ever seen the show? The really well known one, House Hunters or whatever, where they have the three options, and it's like how many times is the wife option gets picked? They're like, oh, it's out of budget, but they end up picking it anyway. They're like, actually, we figured it out.
right, but it's true. Like if most couples, if it's over a certain price point, they make the decision together. But if you're only pitching to one person, you are now relying on the other person to sell their spouse. There's no relationship there. You now have, a proxy to try and sell your product, but they don't care who you are or what. There's no relationship.
Unless you're good at diplomacy or something. But it's like, well,
Right.
especially that type of thing where it's like that makes it harder. Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like
Right.
you need
So
both.
it goes to the same of when you walk into an organization. If you are not sitting in front of the person who's got the final say, you're not going to make the sale.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Like,
exactly. Unless you are able, like, because I know, like, in my enterprise world, like, what I find is like just getting up to that person. So, like,
correct.
for example,
And that's where it becomes that
like,
stepping
so,
stone.
yes, there's like the gatekeeper essentially, right?
Correct.
So it's like you just need to convince that person of like, how can I get to that next person?
Right.
Like they won't make the decision without them, but how can I get in front of that person to present my case?
Right.
Well, as long as you give them enough to arm it. So maybe if the wife isn't home, but you're like, hey, here's the economic here. Can we at least get to that meeting where you can bring both in the room, or at least one? That's not just, you're not going to close the sale with that person. It's like, it's one of those things.
Right. And that's the major difference between the enterprise sale and that small business owner who's like, yep, I am the decision maker. Yes, I'm going to get the opinion of the other, higher ups at the organization, but ultimately you're building the relationship with the actual person who has the say. And if they like you, well, that's people don't buy, in the small world, people buy on emotion. In the enterprise world, there is a lot of logic that goes in. And ultimately, yes, people don't buy from people they don't like, but then you have to get everybody along that process to like you and to buy in and to eventually, and you are working your ass off every step of the way to get all of those people to buy into what you have to offer every step of the way.
Yes.
And that can take, and trust me, I was after a monster size company for years, and I had an awesome relationship with the guy who had the direct relationship with the final decision maker. And despite that, and I left the industry before I finally closed that sale, but I mean, it was like 4 years I was in contact with that person and had a great relationship and everything else. And it was like, am I ever going to get at that meeting? Oh, one day you're going to, yes, I promise I'm going to make that introduction when we're ready. And it's like, well, it's been 4 years.
Yeah. It's one of, it's just, and yeah, it's a lot of understanding how to like the influence and dynamics around it, and how you can, okay, what is this person what am I trying to get with them, and how can I work with them? You know, because like you said, in a giant organization, the finance team, they're going to care about probably ROI and impact and cost. You know, this person, they might care about security and compliance. So how do you get them on board? Then it's like, okay, the legal team, how do you this, you know, you see, versus if you go to a smaller business, like I just need to get to the owner, like,
Right.
and it's different. It's a different world.
And it's funny, you know how many times I've been shut down by legal or
Oh yeah,
compliance
it's happened
because,
to me. I've learned my
like,
lesson from that a few times.
right. Oh, well, we need to run you past legal to make sure that they're open to bringing in another contractor, or they're bringing. It's like, you know what? I'm probably never going to hear from you again.
Yeah. Story of our lives. It's part of the process I learned.
And in staffing, you know, when and this is way back in the day, we used to at the final minute, the company, one company that I work for used to do credit checks on the company before we would do yep, we were approved to work for them. And that was the most painful thing, because then the company would go, yep, we're ready to move forward. And then I would say, so I just need you to sign this document so we can do a credit check on you. And they'd go, yeah, nobody else does that. And I'm like, yeah, but I work for a really large publicly traded organization and they require. And you know how many deals got shot down there?
A lot, probably.
A lot. A
Well,
lot.
what? Because like people, I guess, oh yeah, they don't pay up or something. It's like,
Well, and it's not even that. It's not even that they didn't have great credit. They just were like, really? Like you're gonna run, like, we're a massive company. You're gonna run our credit? And I'm like, sorry.
or maybe, you know,
Right. And then I worked for another company that was like, we don't even need a contract. We're a handshake company. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm
you
gonna
know,
get one. It's wildly. So we totally got off on a tangent here. So
good.
I love, I'm in love with the whole, like, yeah, that whole kind of that 360 view of being able to, you know, for organizations to really take a true look at that historical data for hiring. That's, I mean, that you can't put a price point on the value that has.
Correct. But the thing is, I think the problem is like we're so used to like HR and talent area being a admin function and not a business driving function, and how it's thought of in the American concept. Like I'm not trying to, like, I'm just saying, like, from a business perspective, HR came out of the era of the Industrial Revolution because people
Right.
were like, you know, didn't have rights, and we're making like minimum wage, and HR was there to put out fires and like deal with these issues of harassment and things. They weren't created for business function in terms of driving the business. So I think a lot of it stems from this sort of historical undertone of how HR function is in the US. Now, I think it's changing with technology, as the bigger enterprises are definitely more data driven than smaller companies in HR. I think now with AI, I think people are starting to wake up and go, wait a second, how can we optimize different areas that
Mm-hmm.
drive impact? But if I'm thinking about a sales team, if I'm running a 100-person sales team, I'm thinking about not only can I drive revenue by getting customers, building, process, sales strategy, but also hiring and keeping people. Because the thing is like it's no different, like I said, than sports. If you're getting the best players, yeah, you may have the best coach and the best strategy to run your plays, but if you don't have the best players on the court, you're not going to win. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not. It's no. Nothing is different, right? In how we operate, whether it's sports, a manufacturing environment, sales, it's all the same concepts relate to what leads to success. So I just think that a lot of it just comes from old school thinking and historical thinking.
Yeah, I just kind of fell in love with you a little bit because you just brought in something that, and I'm kidding, but you just brought in something that is another passion of mine.
Love a sales podcast.
Well, the love of sales, right? The love of sales, but also, back in the day, I had an HR podcast where I talked about, HR being, just needing to look and view things differently, because there was a time where HR departments were these big, beautiful departments. And then 2008, the 2006 to
Right.
2008 era hit, and we squeezed these departments down to basically being nothing. And we are seeing more and more of like people leaders coming up where their entire point is to actually drive happiness and be there for the people, and to try to
Yes.
figure out ways to make more employee engagement, which is absolutely awesome, which is what we need to do, because people need to be viewed at a company as an asset instead of as a liability.
Mhm.
And I think that so many people are like, oh God, HR is coming to talk to me. What did I do now? Or what paperwork do I have to spend the next hour filling out for my insurance, or insurance that, sucks, or whatever. And that's not the company's fault. That's another whole topic issue with
Right.
our world. But and that HR should be an active participant in driving revenue at an organization through the active engagement of how we can make employees happier. But it can't just be on HR. It has to be at every level. You can't have managers, and I understand that everybody at every level is a human. We all have emotions. We all have bad days. But at every single level in management, and managers and supervisors have to be held to a higher standard of, you can't walk in and treat people like crap just because you're having a bad day, because you are a manager, you are
Right.
a supervisor. And that is what drives the regular, I don't want to say regular people, but the normal, positions who are relying on those managers to make them feel that they are valued at an organization. And if we can do that through better understanding, through data analytics, through data driven information, through better understanding what our employees need in order to keep them at a company longer and happier, outside of, oh, I want to raise. And yes, there is a standard in which everybody should be paid a certain amount for a certain job, not overpaid, not underpaid. And that's obviously a constant fluctuating thing as well. But if we can better understand all of that, I mean, wouldn't it just be a better, happier place? I went off on, I just
Yeah,
jumped on
no,
my
I know.
soapbox.
Yeah, I think it all plays into the business success and anything. I mean, engagement, there's, engagement, there are I've done correlations, and there are correlations in a lot of places where engagement drives better business, and drives better outcomes on teams and different things like that. It's just that I think a lot of times these metrics can come off as kind of soft, and not like key KPIs, right? I think in the tech world, yeah, I think what you're saying, like the Googles of the world, and the Facebooks and the Apples, and they've figured out that, like, with through their people experiences, right? You go to the office and it's like, they got like free food, and it's they got these meditation rooms, and work, they're geared towards the experience for a certain reason, because they found that for collaboration, and for, like, they want you to be at the office. Like, they want you to be there. If you go to Google's office, I've been to one in New York City. It's literally like walking into its own city. I feel like you step in this place and it's like, there's 4 buildings connected by tunnels, and you walk in the cafeteria and it looks like a 5-star restaurant, and you're like, oh, of course you're gonna come to the office. Like, I mean, like,
Right.
so I think that they've done things in a certain way to make those changes and to think about things. But I think, it's not just about that, but there's other things that factor into success, and I think that it can get overlooked just more than it needs to.
Yeah. Well, we are coming to time. Tyler, this has been just a very awesome conversation. You do have your 30 seconds shameless pitch, because after all, this is a sales podcast, and it wouldn't be right to not give you your 30 seconds shameless pitch here at the end. So go for it.
Shameless. I don't shameless pitch. See, this is so like, that's the thing. I'm like, it's funny you asked that. Like, I don't think I remember the last time I did a 30-second pitch. I don't know if that's good or bad. Maybe that means I'm not pushing hard enough. But yeah, so, like Gradmor, we workforce intelligence business. We do help teams like sales improve performance, particularly around using their data from CRM systems. Things like predictive index, where you can use behavioral assessments. You could also use, like, if you're using DISC or Hogan or any of these, like, we can also do analysis with the other assessments. So I know a lot of people are very, like, sometimes, oh, I like this one versus that. But we're assessment agnostic. We can pull data from everything. So if any way I can help build your team or grow, or you have any questions about how we can leverage data, I'm just happy to be an expert or to be like a source, even if it's not, a sale. So so that's my 30-second quick hitter.
Awesome. And you can check to find where you can reach out to Tyler on the show notes. So if you do want to reach out to him, please go there. But other than that, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation.
Thank you.
This podcast is presented by Accelerate Growth 45, your one-stop shop for business growth. Stop running your business like an operator, delaying wealth creation, and sacrificing your time. Instead, focus on building a valuable business asset, creating lasting wealth, and reclaiming the time you deserve. Accelerate your growth today and visit us at accelerategrowth45.com.
Thanks for joining us for Love Your Sales. For more, connect with Leighann on LinkedIn and be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating and review. We'd love to hear what you think. Looking for a way to take your sales process to the next level? Visit us at loveyoursales.com to find out more about how Leighann can take your organization to new revenue heights. And be sure to join us next time for more great ways to love your customers so they love your sales.